Slide titled ESG and ESG-CV Office Hours December 7th, 2022. Slide includes Housing and Community Development of California logo.
All right, y'all, it looks like the chat is slowing down. I think folks are joining us, so I think we're ready to get started. Welcome once again to this week's office hours for ESG and ESG-CV. My name is Taylor Bilbrey, and I'm today's moderator. If you are just joining us, please go ahead and put introduce yourself in the chat with your name and the region you represent. As a reminder, this office hours session is being recorded for the public record. Office hours recordings are available on the HCD ESG webpage under Technical Assistance and Training. Also, a copy of the slide deck and the recording will be emailed to you by your grant administrator following this session.
Slide includes a subheader titled Question Format.
How to ask a question. All questions must be submitted in the chat box. Please type your organization and question into the chat box. The team will read questions out loud at the end of the presentation and will provide answers if possible throughout the presentation. All questions and answers entered into the chat box will be recorded as part of the public record. For today's agenda, we have some ESG and ESG-CV updates, some office hour updates, some information on upcoming trainings, ESG and ESG-CV question and answer, and a spotlight series presentation on annual ESG waivers. So I will go ahead and read through some of our ESG updates for today. For 2021 contracts, standard agreements, if you have been awarded homelessness prevention funding and you have not turned in your updated policies and procedures for HCD to review and approve, please do not forget to do so by 12/15/2022. As a reminder, HCD will not reimburse any HP expenses until this process has been completed. Avoiding recapture. 20% expenditure milestone deadline is 120 days from the execution date. If your contract has been executed and you need help navigating the eCivis system to complete your RFFs or to add additional people from your agency to manage that award, please reach out to esgnofa@hcd.ca.gov and we will provide TA to you. Some additional ESG updates.
Slide titled ESG Updates 2021 Contracts.
So avoid receiving a standard 209 form and delays in your reimbursement process. All 2021 contracts are managed in eCivis. All requests for funds must be submitted through eCivis by clicking the Financial Report tab. Please do not email these requests to your representatives. Again, this is for ESG, annual ESG. Every request for funds must also include a completed detailed expense report. HCD is conducting mini monitoring for every reimbursement request. This will include anywhere from 3 to 4 line items chosen by your HCD representative and will also include completed client files if requesting reimbursement for rapid rehousing and homelessness prevention expenses. Reminder, all supporting documentation must be redacted and submitted through the secure SharePoint site. Please do not upload documentation into eCivis, as noted in HCD's PII policy. Please be sure to have your supporting documentation ready to submit when requested from your HCD representative.
Slide titled ESG Updates 2022 Applications.
Some additional ESG updates. So 2022 applications. The ESG team is currently reviewing the balance of state competitive applications. All COC applications have been reviewed. All balance of state non-competitive applications have been reviewed. ESG reps have sent all applications that need corrections back to the draft. If you need help or clarification on corrections, please reach out to ESG NOFA email. Reminder, you cannot add additional people from your organization to view the application or award until a contract has been executed.
Slide titled ESG Policy Documents. Slide includes a subheader titled Policy Documents on the ESG webpage Resources tab. Slide includes a list of links to ESG policy documents.
Some additional information on ESG policy documents. I won't read through all of these, but these are some resources that can be available to you once we get the slides after the session. They will be sent out after the session. So here's your ESG team representatives. If you have questions, reach out to your rep.
Slide includes a list of ESG representatives Diana Prado, Giovanni Martinez, Tuesday Cool, Sam Liu, and Anthony Zepeda. Slide includes a contact email esgnofa@hcd.ca.gov.
And moving forward to some ESG-CV updates. Expenditure milestone deadline. So January 31st, 2023 is quickly approaching. All ESG-CV grantees must have expended at least 75% of their total award by this date. Requests for funds, financial reports with actuals must be submitted no later than January 31st, 2023. This is not an accrual-based deadline. Additional ESG-CV updates, reminders for the performance milestones. All program funds for projects, street outreach, emergency shelter, rapid rehousing, and HP shall be expended by September 30th, 2023. All funds for HMIS and admin costs shall be expended by October 31st, 2023. All RFFs should be submitted by November 15th, 2023. We also have a request out for success stories. So HCD is collecting success stories for the ESG-CV grant. So if you have success stories, please reach out to your grant administrator to share those. And very important to remember not to use any PII in any of those submissions or in general. Some HCD office hour updates. So we have some sessions coming up on COC funding. And then of course, throughout the holidays, we are gonna have some empty sessions there. So the 21st and the 28th, we won't have office hours. And then on the 4th through the 25th, we will have office hours, but no spotlight series. And then on February 1st, the Spotlight Series will return.
Slide includes a link to the training site to register for upcoming trainings and links to the ESG-CV Office Hours YouTube channel and the ESG-CV Office Hours audio description YouTube channel.
So, of course, you can find these links whenever the slides are sent out. They will be sent out after the session.
Slide titled COVID Response Resources. Slide includes subheaders titled Standing Up Infection Control Measures and CDC and NHCHC Guidance. Slide includes a list of links to resources under each corresponding subheader.
And similarly, you can check out some of these resources for COVID responses.
Slide titled MPOX Resources. Slide includes a list of MPOX resources.
And monkeypox resources.
Slide titled ESG Resource Links. Slide includes subheaders titled General ESG Information and TA Resources. Slide includes a list of ESG resource links.
ESG resource links as well. You can check those out whenever you get the slides.
Slide titled Questions. Slide includes Housing and Community Development of California logo.
So we will pause for any questions so far before we move on to our Spotlight series. I know that was a lot of information. It looks like we do have a question in the chat if we have an HCD annual rep that could help us. So Ben asks, could you please help clarify whether all annual 2022 ESG applications were sent back to draft or only the applications that needed corrections or amendments were sent back to draft?
Only the apps that needed corrections were
Sam is speaking.
Sent back to the email address that created the app.
Thank you, Sam.
Taylor Bilbrey is speaking.
Did we have any other questions? I don't see any in the chat. Oh, we do have a question from Pamela. Could you further explain the secure SharePoint site? Sam, I think that was also an annual ESG question, if you know more about that.
Sorry, the secure SharePoint site, yeah. So that's IT solution that our department created to hold documents like client files that the reps would be doing mini monitoring for, and for regular annual monitoring as well. So for grantees who get access to that, please contact your annual ESG rep, and if you do need to send anything in, they'll give you access to that site.
Thank you, Sam.
Taylor Bilbrey is speaking.
Did we have any other questions? So Pamela has a follow-up, Sam, it looks like. So regarding the detail of the DER is put into eCivis.
So Pamela, with each funds request, a DER is needed, and those two documents would be going through eCivis. And once your annual rep reviews your DER, they'll select line items for backup documentation that you would upload to SharePoint and not eCivis. And yes, to the next question from Denise, it is the same SharePoint access point for annual monitoring as for mini monitoring.
Sam, this is Pamela.
Yeah.
So I'm confused about the eCivis requesting receipts and etc. at the time of the DERs, but you're saying that that file upload process isn't? It doesn't make sense to me. eCivis is asking for the detail at the time of filing the financial RFF, but you're saying no?
So when you submit your first funds request, I believe it's called a financial report on eCivis, what you'll need to upload are the request for funds PDF, and then there's a separate file, the DER, which is an Excel. So that's all you need to upload at the eCivis points.
But the explanation
Pamela is speaking.
in eCivis, when you're doing your financial upload, it specifically has in quotes or parentheses, receipts, copies of checks, la la la. It states what it's wanting. It wants detail there.
Pamela, who's your rep?
Diana Prado.
Yeah, email Diana and then we'll sort it out for you.
Thank you all.
Taylor Bilbrey is speaking.
I believe Erin had one more comment to make regarding some of the questions.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. And Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, but for Denise's question about the SharePoint site being the same one that they use during monitoring, Amador is actually getting monitored by ESG-CV right now. So I do believe the SharePoint link for ESG-CV is different than the annual SharePoint link. They're both SharePoint sites, but it's going to be a different landing page for annual ESG versus ESG-CV.
Oh, okay, thank you for the correction.
I believe.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. And I
Taylor Bilbrey is speaking.
do apologize. I misspoke in a former slide. I should have said MPOX. I was out last week and missed some of those updates. So we have updated that language to MPOX rather than the former language. So I believe now we are ready to move on.
Slide titled Contact Us. Slide includes a subheader titled If you have any further questions, please contact us. Slide includes information to reach out to your ESG representative with questions or email esgnofa@hcd.ca.gov. For ESG-CV related questions, reach out to your grant administrator.
course, reach out to your rep if you have specific questions regarding either grant source. And I will now pass it over to Marion to provide our spotlight series for today.
Slide titled Spotlight Series Presentation. Slide includes a subheader titled California HCD ESG Newly Approved HUD Waivers. Slide includes speaker's name listed underneath, Marion Goulburn.
Thanks, Marion.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Hello, everyone. As Taylor stated, my name is Marion Goulburn, and I will be your facilitator today. And so I also use she, her pronouns. Next slide, please.
Slide titled ESG Waivers. Slide includes a list of information pertaining to ESG waivers that were requested to HUD.
So today we are going to talk about some newly approved HUD waivers. Back in July of 2022, California HCD submitted a request to HUD for some additional ESG waivers. And because HCD was able to demonstrate a good cause as to why HUD should waive the regulation, in November of 2022, HUD responded and stated that these waiver requests were approved. And so this presentation today will feature the 4 additional waivers that California HCD received from HUD. And so please note that the waivers will apply to annual ESG fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2022. Fiscal year 2020 and ESG-CV are already covered under the CPD 21-08 notice. Next slide, please.
Slide titled Assisting Program Participants with Subleases. Slide includes 3 text bubbles with subheaders titled What is the waiver, Why was it granted, and How does it help?
So we will go ahead and jump right into the first waiver. And this is regarding assisting program participants with sublease. We know that prior to the waiver, subrecipients were not allowed to use ESG funds to do subletting. And so when a program participant chooses to rent a unit that is legally binding, which creates a sublease with the primary leaseholder, the subrecipient, they may now enter into a sublease if they're receiving rapid rehousing or homeless prevention services through the ESG grant. And so the participant can rent the lease legally, subleasing with the primary leaseholder. And the terms housing owner or owner, these are waived and replaced with primary leaseholder, and the term lease will be understood to refer to sublease. And so please note that the October office hours, which featured shared housing as a spotlight series topic, and a shared housing community workshop is scheduled for March 16th, 2023. We will go ahead and drop the link so that you can register for this upcoming training in March of 2023. So why was this waiver granted? We know that the California vacancy rates are lower than they've ever been in 30 years. There's also a severe shortage of affordable housing for our very low and extremely low income renting households. So these two are 2 bullet points of why this waiver was granted by HUD. And so we really want our communities to take advantage of this waiver, because this will help with more subleasing options to increase the number of available units. And this can help with the shortage of the affordable housing, rental housing for our program participants. We know that the ESG grant is here to help participants move into a permanent housing solution. So this subleasing will definitely help with that. This will also help with getting and keeping the participants housed, and of course, help with preventing the spread of COVID-19 and alleviate any economic impact from this pandemic. Next slide, please.
Slide titled Limits on Housing Relocation and Stabilization Services. Slide includes 3 text bubbles with subheaders titled What is the waiver, Why was it granted, and How does it help?
So we will move right on to our next waiver. And this is the limits on housing relocation and stabilization services. So we know prior to the waiver that there was a limit on the housing stability case management services that could be provided, as well as the services for additional services, including housing search and placement, mediation, legal services, to name a few. So with the waiver, the housing stability case management services is waived from the 30 days during which the program participant is seeking housing, and the 24 months during the period when the program participant is living in permanent housing. Again, these time limits are now waived. In addition to that, the time limit of providing services up to 24 months during any 3-year period for additional services, again, including housing search and placement and mediation, is also waived. This was granted because we know that there is a significant gap between the wages and the rent for California's lower income wage earners. And so this results in very low vacancy rates and also a limit on the availability of affordable units. There's also a tight rental market, which makes it take a longer period to locate these units for our program participants. California HCD has communities and developers also requesting additional funding due to the cost increase, which slows down any new home development. So with this waiver, we now have a longer period of time to provide housing stability case management, and this will more than likely increase the likelihood of a participant remaining successfully housed. We will also be able to continue economic impact of the pandemic because it included supply chain instability and inflation. So this will help with that. And as well as right now, it makes it more difficult to complete construction of new housing. So with this new waiver, we'll be able to provide the services. We know that, participants not only need rental assistance, but they also need the services that can be covered with the ESG grant. This will also help with eliminating any durational limits on the housing search and stabilization services that allows providers to provide that support as long as the participant remains in housing. Next slide, please.
Slide titled 24-month limit on rental assistance. Slide includes 3 text bubbles with subheaders titled What is the waiver, Why was it granted, and How does it help?
The next waiver is on the 24 limit for providing rental assistance within a 3-year period. So now we do not have a time limit on providing providing rental assistance, unless, of course, the providers have that in their policy and procedure on how long services will be provided to participants. So note with this new waiver in place that the requirements at the regulation 24 CFR 576 is waived for providing rental assistance up to 24 months in a 3-year period. This was granted because we know that there is an increased cost and slowing down for new construction unit. Rent increased by almost 10% between Q4 of 2020 and Q4 of 2021. We know that there's a lack of affordability, and it is further supported by the differences in FMRs and the average rent. The exit to positive housing destination only represent about 26% of those that were exiting from the rapid rehousing project type. This will help with the ability to exceed the 24-month limit on rental assistance. And this will allow annual ESG funds to be more flexible. And this is, of course, necessary to continue the ESG assistance until a more positive exit destination can be achieved. Next slide, please.
Slide titled Rental Assistance for Units at or Below FMR. Slide includes 3 text bubbles with subheaders titled What is the waiver, Why was it granted, and How does it help?
And our final waiver is on the rental assistance for housing that is at or below the FMR rate. So we know without the waiver for annual ESG that FMR would need to be met. So with this waiver, the requirement states that you can exceed the FMR rate, which is set each year by HUD. However, rent reasonableness would still need to be met. So again, FMR is now waived for annual ESG, but the rent reasonableness is still in place. This was granted because we know that the current FMR is not accurate for accurate reflection of California's current rental market. At times, HUD's FMR is way higher than what is reflected in the communities where the housing units are. And we also know that the average median rent for a 2-bedroom unit is over 20% higher than the FMR for the area where these units are. There's also a shortage of affordable housing for very low income and extremely low income individuals. And the rental housing vacancies are lower than they've been, again, in the past 30 years. So how does this work? The above conditions that I stated demonstrate that the high need for the FMR waiver for California subrecipients for providing rapid rehousing and homeless prevention will definitely help to increase the housing move-in rate for those participants that are moving into permanent housing. So this will be this was a very brief overview. We wanted to share the exciting news about these 4 waivers for annual ESG. So we will go ahead and the next slide, I believe that is the last one.
Slide titled Spotlight Series Discussion. Slide includes a subheader titled California HCD ESG Newly Approved HUD Waivers. Slide includes bullet point with speaker's name, Marion Goulburn.
If you have any questions, we can go ahead and ask those at this time. You can come off mute or you can put your questions in our chat.
Marion, we do have a couple questions
LaQuantia Goodman is speaking
in the chat, and I'll start first with Veronica's question, where she asked to clarify, is today a review of waivers that were previously authorized for ESG-CV and have now been extended to annual ESG? And Veronica, not all of the CV waivers actually apply, just the 4 that we are going over today.
That's correct, LaQuantia.
Marion Goulburn is speaking.
So these 4 waivers that we cover are for annual ESG. We know that these waivers are already covered under ESG-CV and also for fiscal year 2020. So these waivers, again, are for annual ESG for fiscal year 2021 and 2022.
Thank you, Marion.
LaQuantia Goodman is speaking.
And our next question from Eva, what is the start date of these waivers? And we had that start date, it actually began November 14th.
And LaQuantia, I just want to add
Marion Goulburn is speaking.
That the subrecipients are automatically covered in the waiver. They just need to let their annual reps know that if they will be using them.
Okay, and I think that that actually answers Ben's question,
LaQuantia Goodman is speaking.
where he asked, is there anything that HCD subrecipients need to do to take advantage of these HUD waivers? Does anyone else have any questions? Need to unmute yourself to ask or drop in the chat? Oh, and we did have one more question from Eva. What happens when the landowner does not want his property sublet and wants the sublease holder out because he did not authorize? And
So LaQuantia, yes, to that
Marion Goulburn is speaking.
question, we want to make sure that the subleasing is binding and legal. So our communities, case management, or any housing staff should ensure that this is the case. If any this occurrence happen, then we should definitely work on rehousing the participant as soon as possible, as we do not want the participant to end up back in a homelessness situation.
thank you, Marion.
LaQuantia Goodman is speaking.
And Ben has another question. So a brief email to the ESG rep indicating that we would like to use the waivers would be sufficient.
Yes, that's correct.
Marion Goulburn is speaking.
Just definitely reach out to the HCD annual rep.
Awesome.
LaQuantia Goodman is speaking.
Anybody else with any other questions? Well, it doesn't seem as though we're getting any more in the chat. So thank you, Marion, and thank you everyone for your questions. Please remember that a brief survey will pop up after the session is over, and please take a minute just to answer for us. We will see you next week. Have a good day.